All right, everyone, I guess it's time to get started. So first of all, let me wish you all a very good afternoon and thank you for joining in. Welcome to the first joint webinar by INCOP and Vakil Search. My name is Renoy George and I'll be the in customs. Now, objective over here is to help you how to handle government notice like a professional. All right, then let's move on to the first slide. INCOP Advisory Services Private Limited. They're the Indian entity of INCOP Group based in Singapore with a prominent presence across Asia, in India, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia. They're a team of 350 plus highly qualified professionals who provide a comprehensive variety of corporate services under one roof, enabling every business owner to bring their vision to reality. They provide full service corporate solutions, specializing in corporate compliance, accounting, taxation, incorporation, expansion, and advisory services. Let's move on to the next. Vakil Search is India's largest online platform for legal compliance and tax services and trusted partner in making legal simple. Since 2012, Vakil Search has grown to become the preferred choice of over 75,000 plus businesses for their legal compliance and professional needs. The top services include company incorporation, GST registration, accounting, secretarial, and taxation services, trademark registration for Indian and international, licenses for FSSI, shops and establishment, import-export code, and more. And we provide 300 plus legal and professional services. Now let's go on to the next slide. Let me introduce our first speaker, Mr. Maghav Shukla. He'll be the direct tax expert. He has 10 years of experience in the field of direct tax, including experience in handling litigation, corporate tax compliance, advisory services, international taxation, and transfer pricing matters. He has also handled complex search and seizure matters under income tax, apart from representation before tax authorities, including that before Commissioner Appeals and Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. He is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and holds a diploma in international taxation from the state. Let's move on to the next slide, please. All right. So to start things off, we'll talk about faceless assessment, particularly under income tax. So I invite Maghav to take things over from here. Welcome, Maghav.
Thanks, Renoy, for the wonderful introduction, for the kind words that you have spoken about INCOP Advisory, myself, and the Vakil Search. Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you who have been present here on a Wednesday afternoon. It's exactly the mid of the week, and in afternoon here we are trying to learn a new topic, something that has just recently been introduced and something that is being even income tax department is working upon. So here we are to understand as to how faceless assessment, which has been introduced by income tax department, is in operation currently. What are its key features? We'll also understand how it is different from the way the assessments used to happen before this technological upgradation that had happened. So we'll look into those parts as well. Thereafter, we'll also highlight the importance of what are the basic things which your income tax portal, which are income tax basic details which should be updated on an income tax portal to ensure that all the communications which the income tax department is making reaches you in time, and you are also able to monitor what all communications have been made by the department to you. All these things were not happening in the past because we used to get notices delivered at a registered address, at the addresses which we had given at the time of filing of return or at the time when the PAN application were made. So these notices used to get delivered at our homes, and we were aware as to that some notice of income tax has come, and then thereafter we used to forward it to our tax consultant or a chartered accountant or anybody who looks after the tax matters. But come COVID-19, and in fact, Income Tax Department India was in a very unique position, especially because even before COVID had hit us, we had taken various functionalities online. And because of the various features that were being enabled, the need of visiting the income tax department had reduced. Because now tax returns are being filed online, you don't have to go and submit them to the officer. Your responses are getting filed online. You don't need to go to income tax offices. Your assessments are now happening online. You don't need to go to visit your income tax department. So the physical meeting between the tax authorities and the assessees have been done away with, and all thanks to advancement of technology. So technology has been the key feature which have been adopted by the tax authorities in India to do away with all these things, which physical meetings, visiting the tax department, all that has been done away with. So all this began in 2006, 2007. 2007 was the first year wherein all the tax audits were, all the assessees to whom there are tax audits applicable, tax returns were mandatorily to be filed online. Come assessment year 13, 14, the tax audits which only used to be filed in physical form were also made online. Come 2015, 2016, your verifications started happening online. You don't have to then now sign your ITRV and send it to CPC Bangalore. So all these things have been happening online. So slowly and steadily we moved on to an era wherein physical copies are not required. If you are able to do things which the income tax has asked us to do, your PAN and Aadhaar are linked, you can verify it. If your bank account is validated, you can verify it. So more or less, slowly and steadily, as we all know, Income Tax Act dates back to 1922. There was an old act, Income Tax Act 1922. Later on, we moved on to Income Tax Act 1961. Currently, we are being assessed, whatever the powers of income tax are, is under Income Tax Act 1961. But the level of changes that we have seen since 2014 has been transformational. The way the technology has been put into use, and the topic that we are covering today, faceless assessment, something that cannot be even imagined 10 years back, that an assessment would be concluded just based on the system, was something which was not foreseeable at all. So we'll take you through this with this brief background. I have divided my entire topic in 7 parts, and we'll take you through each of them one by one. So firstly, faceless assessment. Finance Act 2019. As we all know, on 1st of February every year, the budget is being presented. In the year 2019, when Finance Minister rose to present the bill, in her speech, one of the things was that assessments are going to be made in a faceless manner. And the first para that you see on the screen, the existing system of scrutiny assessment involves a high level of personal interaction between the taxpayer and the department, which leads to certain undesirable practices on the part of tax officials. So this was the specific reason why the faceless assessment was to be done away with, because the government believed that there is undesirable practices which is happening because the assessments are being made in the physical manner. So to do away with it, on 1st of February 2019, in her budget speech, faceless assessment was introduced. And from thereafter, various notifications have been issued giving powers to that objective. And that's how the things have been moved. And here we are today, wherein all the assessments are now happening online in a faceless manner, wherein you don't know the officer who is making your assessment. Earlier, it used to happen that whenever a notice used to come, it has to have details of the assessing officer who is making the assessment. It also used to have which place he is issuing the notices, where is he sitting, is he sitting in Aikar Bhavan, is he sitting in Mittal Court, is he sitting in Air India building. So those notices, those details were used to be there. And then we used to go and attend in front of him, and the assessments were getting concluded. But with the faceless assessment, notices come on the income tax portal, reply has to be filed on the income tax portal. Nothing happened physically. No notices will ever be now issued in the physical form, and no notice will ever come to your doors. That is the biggest change that we are seeing as far as the faceless assessment is concerned. So to avoid undesirable practices that are happening, the faceless assessment was introduced. On 13th of August 2020 was the cutoff date, wherein from 13th of August, all the notices, all the assessments started happening online. Our Prime Minister had launched this thing, and he had called it as honoring the honest taxpayers. That to honor the honest taxpayers, we are bringing this thing to ensure that assessees are not harassed, assessees does not face any issues. Now, as we all know, the income tax website, which is the manner through which they communicate with us, the income tax department, had undergone change from 1st of June to 6th of June. The income tax website was not operational because the old website was taken out and new website was brought into picture. So this is the new website. We'll just quickly run you through as to how the new website looks like. It is essential to understand certain key features in the new income tax website, because since in the faceless era, all the communications will be happening on the details that you have updated on the income tax portal. So it is essential that we all maintain certain basic hygiene with respect to the updation of our income tax portal, to ensure that email ID is not of some tax consultant or somebody working at his office, or for instance, any other person who used to look after those things. Because it is very essential that notices come to your email ID, which you are continuously checking, you are monitoring, so that notices could be answered in time. And hence, what is of utmost importance is that we update our income tax profile on the income tax website. So this is the login details. We are all aware that it requires a PAN, your password. Thereafter, as we can see, the below screenshot shows us the basic page which comes as soon as you log in onto the portal. Under the My Profiles tab, I will run you through. My Profile, it has details pertaining to your name, your date of incorporation. This is something that picks from the PAN database. Contact details are mandatorily be updated. One point which I think everybody should take it from this webinar, you mandatorily go to your portal, update your mobile number and your email ID as a first thing that you do once you get out of this webinar. Because all the communications will happen online, it is very essential that you have these things updated. Because all the communications will happen on the updated address, updated email address and mobile number that you give here. Thereafter, it is essential that you update your bank account, because all the refunds flow through to the bank account which is registered here. Higher securities have been enabled. E-filing Vault higher security. It talks about that you can also enable this, wherein every time somebody logs in, DSC, digital signature, will be mandatorily required. This has been done to ensure that nobody has an unauthorized access to your login thing. Secure access message. This is a feature which has been brought similar to our banking login details that we have. It is a message that you can keep to ensure that whenever you enter your PAN, it shows you the access message that you have given. This will ensure that the website that you are accessing is a genuine one and not a fake one. Jurisdictional details. There are certain powers which the assessing officer sitting at the city where you are in, he has some powers pertaining to recovery, rectification matters. For those, you can still visit the department and get your old demands rectified and all. Key person details again applies in case of non-individuals. Shareholder information again with respect to companies, LLPs, wherein you can update these details. Authorized signatories, again the same thing. Representative assessee comes into the picture, wherein if somebody has passed away and you are the legal heir who is going to file the return, so that is this tab. So as I have told you, the most important thing, update your login, update your profile in the income tax portal. On a lighter note, I would just mention that it is even more important than updating your WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram profile, because here you might miss something which can cost you a bomb, and there if you don't, it won't cost you a bomb, it would cost you a few likes here and there. So that was on a lighter note. Now here are certain key features. What is something basic things which you should know in the income tax portal. Form 26AS, Form 26AS is a form which is being given by the income tax department. It shows you all the information which the income tax department has on you. It includes like cash deposits made, investments made in mutual funds, property transactions made, all the people who have deducted your TDS, all those information. Now, why this is critical is whenever you file your return, there might be certain transactions which you have done at the start of the year, say in April or May. You file your return next year in the month of July, August, September. You give certain details to a person who is filing the return, but it is possible that something might be missed. But Form 26A ensures that all the important financial transactions that you have done is captured in that particular form, and you have all those details with you, and that you file your income tax return only after considering all the entries therein. So Form 26A was amended a few months back, and all the details have been ensured that these key details are available in Form 26A, which should be mandatorily looked into before we file the return. Now, this is how Form 26A looks like. It has all the details. Now, moving on to the second feature is about the response to outstanding tax demand. Now, this is also second thing which is very important. Response under the pending actions tab, the second option is response to outstanding demand. Now, what does this response to outstanding demand mean? It means that all the demands that are being reflected on your PAN are given by income tax department that you please respond to. These are your demands. You kindly respond whether you agree to it. If you agree, there is an option of pay now. You can go and make the payment. Or if you don't agree, then you can file the response as to why this demand is not correct. So we can either correct it. If the demand is correct, we can agree. If the demand is not correct, we can give the details why it is not correct. So these are the two important things on the income tax portal, apart from your profile updation, Form 26A and the outstanding demand. Only when you respond that there are no outstanding demands, your refunds that you claim through income tax return can flow to you. So many people might be wondering that I have filed my returns have been processed, but my refunds are not flowing. So one of the major reasons is that there are income tax demands which are outstanding. And because those demands are outstanding, the department will not issue you refund until you either agree or you disagree to the demands that are reflected. So these are the three key things which everybody should check in their income tax login once they log in. These are the three key things which you should check in the portal. Now moving on to the core topic, which is the faceless assessment. A brief comparison here I have tried to make as to how things used to happen in the physical assessment and what happened in the faceless assessment. So we all know what used to happen in the physical assessment. We'll just quickly run you through the faceless assessment part. In the faceless assessment, everything happens on the system, through the system. It's an automated process. The assessments can now be made by anybody sitting anywhere. Your assessing officer who is making the assessment might be sitting in any part of the country. It can be Delhi, it can be Bangalore, it can be Assam for that matter. So it is not required. Earlier, it used to happen that if you are residing in Mumbai, your assessment will be done by the officer who sits in Mumbai. But that has been done away with. Certain powers were also there with the officers, which has again been taken away, because now there is no subjectivity, there is no biasness that can creep in, because entire selection process has also been done online. Since large amount of data is being gathered by the department, basis the data that has been gathered, system triggers the issue of notices, system selects the case, system allots the case to a person sitting somewhere. Nothing of which is known to you. You can only get to know only when you receive the notice through an email that your cases has been selected. NEAC, National E-Assessment Center. That is a wall that has been brought in between the assessee and the income tax department. Income tax department gives the details to NEAC. NEAC in turn gives the notice to assessee. Assessee in turn has to respond to NEAC. NEAC in turn gives the notice to the assessing officer who is making the assessment. So the user interface becomes the income tax portal. That is how the assessment will be made in a faceless assessment manner. Notices will be reflected in the portal. You got to reply to those notices. Those replies which you have submitted will be given to the assessment unit, and they will, depending on whatever the submissions are, they will decide how the assessment is to be concluded. This is again in brief the same thing. Now the key timelines, how and when these things happen. As I told you, Finance Bill 2019 was the starting point. Come 2019, assessment scheme was introduced. August 2020, cutoff date when all the assessments are now happening online, subject to couple of exceptions. In case of search, it is still happening physically. In case of international tax matters, it is still happening physically. But if your cases doesn't fall in these two categories, it will be happening online. Appeals were also made online, faceless. Appeal is the first level where you go if you're not satisfied with the assessment order. That was introduced from 25th of September. Penalty. After the assessment is done, if any addition is made, the penalty is also done in a faceless manner from 12th of January 2021. So all the notices that you will be received from these dates on the income tax portal. So as you were discussing, what is the brief process? If somebody is to explain how the assessment will happen, this is how it will happen. So information will be called for from the assessee. Once the information has been gathered by the AO, assessing officer will verify it. Now, if he cannot make the inquiry, he can take help of one of his team, which is called as a verification unit. Now, that verification unit will verify whether whatever details that you have given, based on the information available with the department, whether that verification unit, whatever details you have submitted, is correct or not. So the facts will be verified by the verification unit. If there is a particular claim being made, whether that claim is in accordance with the provisions of the law, legal unit, he has technical unit, he can refer that matter to technical unit. Based on the information and suggestions that verification unit and technical unit will give, assessing officer then reaches this stage, wherein on completion of the above process, he can either finalize the assessment. In case if the return is as it is accepted, then you are obviously not prejudiced. You are very happy that, okay, my tax returns which is filed is without making any addition, they have accepted, you are happy. In that case, no notice will be served. But in case if any addition is being made or any deduction is not being allowed, then in that case, he'll provide you a draft assessment order, and basis that draft assessment order, he'll show cause you as to why this draft assessment order should not be made final. It might be also possible that you reply to that thing, and then basis your reply, it goes to a review unit, because that person who has made the draft order, he cannot pass the final. The draft order, the reply that you file will then go to review unit. Review unit will in turn again consider your replies and then again give you either final order accepting what you have said, or he can again give you a draft assessment order basis which the assessment is proposed to be completed. So this is how the e-assessment will happen. Earlier, it used to happen that assessing officer gives us a show cause notice. He says this addition will be made, and that's how the assessment used to happen. But in the faceless era, the show cause notices will be issued. The draft order will be issued. How much will be the addition made, how your order will look, will also be issued. Now, here are the few notices that we'll quickly run through, and why it is important to reply to these notices in a timely manner is something that we are focusing on. 245 notice is basically whenever you file the return and you have demands outstanding, government has to mandatorily issue this notice before making any adjustment. So whenever a 245 notice comes, you should answer this notice on utmost priority to ensure that your refunds get processed quickly. So this is a 245 notice. It gives details of all the demands that are outstanding. 148 notice, it's a reopening thing. Whenever your case is selected for scrutiny, basis the information available, this notice is issued. This has to be answered within 30 days. So we need to ensure that we comply within the time. This is a 143.2 notice. This is the first notice which is issued, which signifies that your case after filing the return is selected for scrutiny. I'll highlight here that only less than 1% of the cases are selected for scrutiny by the income tax department. So whenever these notices are issued, we need to ensure that the assessment has started, and they also give the primary issues based on which the assessment will be made. So that needs to be addressed. So whenever replies are made, we need to keep in mind these 2 points. Like here we can see refund claim, contract receipts of fees. This can be varied for different individuals. 142.1, this is the notice through which they call for information. So what are the information that can be called for? This is a draft notice that I have reproduced here. All these details. So all these notices will be reflected on the portal. This is a penalty notice on the addition. This also needs to be responded to. 272A1D. If you are not complying to a particular notice, this notice can be issued and the penalty can be of 10,000 rupees. So we need to ensure that we comply on time, because non-compliance has its own consequence. Whenever there is a non-compliance, either you will get the delayed refund, or a penalty can be levied, or an order can be passed raising the demand. So it is essential that we comply to the notices on time. Now, where will you see the notices on the income tax portal? We can see pending actions tab. We go to e-proceedings tab. Under e-proceedings, all the notices that I have told you will be reflected. These are the different types of notices, as we can see. View notice, that's the place where you can reply as well. Submit response, as we can see, we need to click on submit response to these notices. Now, these are the details of the notices against which you are making the reply. That is what the system shows you. Now, as soon as you go to reply, it will ask you whether you are submitting a partial response or a full response. So depending on whether you are complying with all the points of the notices, then it will be a full response. But if you are only replying to few parts, you can still do that. You can treat it as a partial response. And then here are the types. As we can see, there are various parts that has been given. That what are you attaching? You need to select out of the given options. If you're submitting computation of income, you can select that. If you are uploading financial statements, you can select that. So based on whatever you are submitting, you need to select that as an option, and then you can upload it. There are certain prerequisites of what can be opened, what can be uploaded, how things are accepted, because anything that is more than 5 MB, a particular attachment won't be accepted. So we need to ensure that we comply to those basic rules. Here I have submitted the response. There can be error, as I've told you that it cannot exceed a 5 MB. So if you are uploading a file which is more than 5 MB, then this is something that pop-up will come that it's an error and it won't take you forward. So those are the basic things that we need to take care of. So this is the manner in which we will submit our responses under the tab e-proceedings. This is how the submissions will go. Under the faceless assessment, there won't be any information as to what is the objective behind which why your returns are open. You don't have the details apart from anything than the notice. Notice is the only manner in which they'll make the communications, and response that we file is the only way in which we can submit our point of view with respect to the returns that is being filed. Hence, it is very essential, it is of utmost importance that we take proper, appropriate help of the people who are aware of the situation, who has filed the return, maybe who is aware as to what are the provisions. Because here is a case wherein once you've submitted, the response gets locked. Response cannot be undone with. Hence, we need to ensure that whatever we submit is correct, factually, and also legally. Hence, appropriate help of the specified people can be taken to ensure that we are complying, and we are complying in the right manner. This is not note on non-compliance. What happens in case of non-compliance? So as I told you, 245 notice, if you don't reply to it, your refunds might get adjusted. You would have filed for a refund of 50,000, but you are only receiving 10,000 because 40,000 was some demand which is reflected, which got adjusted. And then you might be wondering that as to why I did not get the full refund. So 245 notice, whenever it comes, ensure that you file a proper response to it as to why the demands are not correct. 272A1D, as I told you, there might be certain notices which needs to be complied. If you don't comply, stating that I was not aware about it, that cannot be an excuse. You need to be checking your email ID, your income tax portal, where the notices are reflected. If you don't comply to a particular notice, which is 142.1, 143.2, 142, then in that case, department has the power to levy a penalty for non-compliance. Section 144, your assessment can be concluded in an ex parte manner and demands would be raised, huge demands. That can only be then contested before Commissioner appeals. Hence, it is essential that we reply to those notices in time. We give appropriate, proper replies to the show cause that is being issued so that the demands in first place can be stopped and demand does not get raised. 270 capital 8 talks about the penalty that can be levied. So this is why it is essential that we are aware as to when the notices are issued to avoid these pitfalls and the delay of refunds or penalties being levied. So I think that's all. I have tried to cover all the basics that is happening currently and what all things we should be taking care of and how the assessments are being happening in the current manner under the faceless era. So I hope I have been able to give some insights on to the new thing that has been introduced by the government, and we will take care of the basic things which I have told you at the start of the webinar, the basic things that everybody should be aware about, the login details, about the profile updation. So with that, I would like to conclude my part of faceless assessment under the income tax.
Thank you, Margav. Yes, thank you, Margav. It certainly was an insightful session on faceless assessment for income tax. I especially liked one important point that you made. We all update our social media profiles, but it's equally important, or probably more important, to update our profiles on the income tax portal. So, well said and well put, and sound advice to all. One will cost you bombs, the other will cost you likes. I think that should be a quote. Okay. So that should be a quote, right? Yeah, that's a good quote. So, all right. I think it's time to load the second presentation. All right, folks. Now we go into the second session and this will be focused on online assessment under GST and customs. So let's move on to the next slide. All right. I'd like to introduce the second speaker, Mr. Pratik Jayachandra, who's the indirect tax expert, tax advocate, and an associate in the indirect tax division with over 8 years of field experience, specialist in GST, customs, Middle East tax. Core area of expertise include tax litigation, advisory, and consultation. He's also experienced in defending clients before the tax authorities, customs, excise, and service tax appellate tribunal, and Karnataka appellate tribunal. So welcome, Pratik, and nice to have you here. Let's go on to the next slide. And
guys, thank you everyone for waiting for the session to start for my session, and welcome back. I'm going to be taking the electronic assessments or faceless assessments for indirect tax. Of course, this would include GST and customs as well. When we speak about indirect tax here, indirect tax field is not new into electronic means in areas of compliance and tax payments. The first electronic bill of entry was filed in 1995, and the advent of electronic filing in service tax was in 2010. In India, digitization of tax compliances and payments became a norm even before the implementation of GST, while internationally, countries like Singapore, Taiwan, and Brazil started digitization as well. Of course, with assessments also coming into electronic and faceless mode, we can definitely say that is a step up from the previous electronic compliances or payments that was carried out. When we speak about electronic assessments in GST, the goods and service tax, when it was introduced, it streamlined filing of returns and making payments online. But the GST portal's function is not restricted to this. Lately, the GST authorities have begun issuing various notices and orders in the taxpayers portal, along with sending emails and SMS alerts for the same. When GST began the pull towards electronic assessments with automation and digitization of the notices, replies, and appeals, various notices that were issued under GST are being hosted on the GST portal directly, where the taxpayers get to access them. In this table, I've provided details about the various grounds for which notices are issued, the type of notices that have been issued, that are going to be issued, the type, the classification of it, the notice by the department that is provided, the various formats that are notified under GST, the action taken by the taxpayer. Here, by action, I mean the format that is to be used by the taxpayer when they reply back to the notice or the order passed by the department. And of course, this column talks about the reply time that is provided to the taxpayers to reply. There is a reason why we have classified the various notices under as intimation notices, show cause notices, and orders. Because in the GST portal, when you try and access these three types of notices and orders, you have three different areas where you need to go to in the GST portal to access them. Let's have a look at them. Let's have a look at each of them. In case of intimation notices, when we talk about intimation notices, it is merely a notice that is sent by the department to the taxpayer, stating that there is either defaulted in filing his returns, or there are some discrepancies in the returns that have been filed by him. It is merely an intimation to him, asking him to rectify the information, rectify the details furnished by him, or to submit the return that has yet to be filed. You can access this intimation notice by logging into your GST portal and navigating towards services, user services, and view notices and orders. This is the page that opens up for you once you log in, once you access to that, navigate to that particular area. And as you can see, the notices have already been sent here. One important thing you need to notice here is that it is a system generated notice. That is, it is an automated notice sent by the department. This notice is with regard to return defaulter under section 46. That is, they have not filed their GSTR 3B return within the due date. And after that, it also provides the due date with which you need to file the return along with applicable interest and late fees in order to ensure that assessment order is not passed in and as per the GST law. The taxpayer gets the option to download the notices that have been uploaded to them. They can download it, go through the notice with the period and the amount that has been stated there, and they need to take action on the notice by filing the respective return to be filed, or by providing a reply to the discrepancies. In this case, there is no other way to reply to the notice except for filing the GST return that has been delayed. This can include the GSTR 3B, the GSTR 8, the GSTR 9, or the GSTR 10, the final return. So by filing that particular return, the notice issued under this intimation notice issued under this particular page, it will be considered as withdrawn. Next, we have show cause notices that are issued as well. Show cause notices are also issued under GST for various reasons, under various sections. But as and when they do issue a show cause notice, the same is uploaded into the GST portal, and the taxpayer can access it by logging into their profile and then navigating towards services, user services, view additional notices and orders. Once you go to the particular page, navigate to it, this particular page opens up to you, where the various notices that are show cause notices that are uploaded will be made available to you. You can click on view in order to take action on the show cause notice, and you will be taken to the next page. This page, as you can notice, there are 3 different tabs available: notices, replies, and orders. This particular page opens up to the notices part, where the notice has been uploaded by the tax officer, the jurisdictional officer of the taxpayer. The type of notice is a show cause notice under 7374. There's a reference number, there's issue date of the notice, and the due date to reply. Very important part. This is the due date within which you need to reply to the show cause notice through the GST portal itself. And then you have the option. There is also the option of personal hearing that has been provided that has been opted by the tax officer himself. The tax officer himself has stated that the taxpayer has to come for a personal hearing mandatorily. Next, we have section number that is issued under which section number of the GST law, that is section 74. Then you have the attachments for the same. You can download those attachments in the PDF format, and you can view the details that have been submitted by the tax officer. Subsequent to downloading the note attachments and notices and being intimated about it, the taxpayer has to reply back to the notice within the due date, and he has to reply back to the notice as per the required format given under GST law. In this case, the show cause notice issued was in GST DRC 01. So we are going to reply back to the notice in GST DRC 06. Format is available in CBIC website. You can definitely take the format, put in the details, type in the details that are required under it, state the various facts as well as grounds which you're arguing your case on. And then when you click on replies here, after you are prepared with those documents, once you click on reply, some of the information, this page opens up and some of the information gets auto-populated. There's a reply option here, which is mandatory, and you need to give a small summary of what you're replying against or the notice. Then you can put in an attachment, upload attachments to the reply that you're providing, such as your supporting documents, your form GST DRC 06, as well as any other facts and grounds that you intend to state. Post which you can click on the verification, select the authorized signatory, the place, and go on to file the reply with the department within the due date that is stated there. And you can file the reply either through the digital signature certificate in case of a company or with OTP in case of others. It depends upon the constituency of the taxpayer. Once you provide reply, the reply will be forwarded to the specified tax officer, who will then carry out a scrutiny of the replies that you have filed. As you all know, under show cause notices, one major point that is given to taxpayers is that they get to have a personal hearing. A personal hearing is where we can interact, either the taxpayer or their authorized representative can interact with the GST officer, the tax officer, and explain the situation to them. Under show cause notices, under the show cause notices issued in the portal, there is a situation where the tax officer himself selects the personal hearing as his, and if he does so, there is no option for the taxpayer to select personal hearing as yes or no. That is, if the officer wants the taxpayer to appear for a personal hearing, then the taxpayer does not have a choice in that. He has to mandatorily appear for it. If, however, the officer has given the option to the taxpayer, then he may choose yes or no on that. This has also been confirmed with the GST help desk, where they stated the same to us. Of course, when it's always better to take a personal hearing with the officer. When you file your reply in DRC 06, you always have the option of selecting yes on that. So never give up an opportunity for personal hearing if the officer has not selected it. Subsequently, we have the orders tab. Once a reply has been filed with the department for the notice, it is forwarded to the assessing officer. The assessing officer takes over, scrutinizes the entire reply, and then will pass an order based on that within the time limit. In this case, when an order is passed, the type of order is mentioned here. The order number, which is very important, is stated. The order date and the order attachment. That is the order copy which the officer has passed against the show cause notice and the reply. All of this will be made available to the taxpayer. He can download it and he can view it at his convenience. Further, once an order has been made by the assessing officer under GST, the taxpayer has two options in front of him. When an order is passed, the order can either be in favor of the taxpayer or the order can be against the taxpayer. If it is in favor of the taxpayer, no other action is required by him. But if it is against the taxpayer, then the taxpayer has two options there. He can either comply with the order that has been passed against him, or he can go for an appeal. When we go for an appeal, the same appeal on the show cause passed against the taxpayer can also be filed under the GST portal. Filing of the appeal in GST portal is also quite easy. You will need to log into your GST portal, navigate to services, user services, my applications. Once you click on my applications, this particular page comes up for you. And under this, you need to select the type of, you need to click the drop down menu on the application type, go on to appeal to appellate authority, click on it and click on new applications. Once you do so, the following, the new application opens up for the taxpayer. One major requirement before you go for an appeal in the GST portal is that you need to have the order number with you at the time. The order number is available to you right here in the cause notice. When the show cause notice order is passed against the taxpayer, this order number will be provided to him right here. This is the order number that you need to have, because once you click on new application, you'll be taken to the next page, which is the page where you need to select the type of order that has been passed against you. As you see here, there are different types of orders. There's a demand order, there is a registration order, there's a refund order, and a non-demand order. Since you have the order number with you that has been provided on the GST portal, you can key in the order number here and click on search. Please note that only those order numbers which are available in the GST portal can be appealed against you. Once you carry out and once you key in the details and give search, a new the type of appeal opens up to you in order to get forward. And this page opens up after you click on search. You have the order type, the order number, and details. As you notice, your date of communication has already been auto-populated. You need to select the category of case which is coming under dispute and give it as add. I will show you the list of categories that are coming in there. That's not an issue. Then we have the upload annexure to GST APL 01. This GST APL 01 is the format that is given by the department, which you need to use, which you need to prepare and upload when if you're filing an appeal with the department. If you're filing with an appeal with the department, the GST APL 01 is important for you. You need to prepare the GST APL 01 and upload it. The template for the APL 01 can be found right here, where if you click here, the template of APL 01 is downloaded to your system along with the format. You need to enter the details, take a print of it and sign and scan it and upload the APL 01 right here, which will have the details for. Once you upload the APL 01, in case of demand orders, I'm talking about orders which require payment of tax, interest or penalty, then in those cases, you need to make a pre-deposit. In order to make the pre-deposit, you need to click on disputed amount or payment details, and this particular page opens up for you. Once this page opens up, see, when an order is passed against the taxpayer, in case of a demand order, the demand can be for tax amount, interest and penalty. When you go for an appeal, a mandatory 10% pre-deposit on the disputed tax amount is required to be paid before you can file the appeal. When we talk about a disputed tax amount, there can be the disputed tax amount is nothing but the amount which the taxpayer states that he is not liable to pay to the department. When the demand order is created, there is the entire amount of which the demand is created for. Once it is created, the taxpayer has three options. He can accept the entire demand order amount and he can admit the entire amount and pay the amount right there, or he can dispute the entire amount that has been passed against him, the order, or he can partly dispute the amount. When you partly dispute it, then part of the amount will be considered as admitted and part of the tax amount will be considered as disputed. The entire admitted amount by the taxpayer has to be paid in full, and 10% of the tax amount only disputed by the taxpayer has to be paid before filing for appeal, even for the appeal to be accepted. In case where the taxpayer has chosen to admit the entire tax amount but has disputed the payment of interest and penalty, then no pre-deposit will be required, simply because pre-deposit was only for the tax or cess amount. So once you have decided on the amount that is under dispute, you will key in the details right here, the amount that is under dispute, the amount of demand that is created, and the amount of demand that is admitted. Based on this information, you will go to the next page where the pre-deposit amount needs to be stated by you. In here, you have the admitted amount, that is the amount for which you have to, amount of the demand order which you have admitted. Then the pre-deposit amount, you will be filling in the details here. These details of payment and admitted amount are also filled here, and the balance payable amount shows up here. In order to make the payment for this thing, you can either make it through input tax credit or through the cash ledger, that is the cash amount available in the electronic cash ledger. All you have to do is click on utilize ITC or cash, and it will be taken to the next page. In this particular page, the amount that has been admitted by you as admitted and the 10% deposit pre-deposit amount is shown as a liability here. Post this, you will be given the cash ledger balance and the credit ledger balances. And after this, you need to key in the details that you require, that you want to pay. You can either make the payment through credit ledger, depending upon the case for which the order has been passed, or you can make the payment through the cash ledger. Once you have keyed in the details, you can click on set off, for which the amount will be set off and the payment reference number will be generated for this. Post this, we'll go back to the first page. The earlier one I showed you was the first half of the page. This would be the second half of the page that has come out. In the second part of the appeal page, you get the option of uploading various supporting documents. Supporting documents would be those documents, the facts and grounds of the appeal that you're putting in, the returns that you may have filed, any workings that you intend to share or reconciliations. All of this will be uploaded in the document, supporting documents here, along with the document description. Please note that only 4 supporting documents with maximum 5 MB will be allowed for uploading it. And if you do have more than that to actually provide to the Commissioner Appeals, then the remaining documents have to be handed over in a hard copy. Yes, even under appeals also, it is not fully electronic or on the GST portal. In case you need to submit additional documents, you can always hand it over directly to the Commissioner Appeals. Post all of this, after carrying out all of this work, uploading all the documents that are required and making the pre-deposit, you get the option. You have to click on verification here, click on the name of authorized signatory and select them, enter the place, and then go on to proceeding to file the appeal again against the order, either through a digital signature certificate or through the OTP, depending upon the constituency of the taxpayer. One more thing to note is that when it comes to pre-deposit, in cases of refund, registration, or non-demand orders, there is no requirement for pre-deposit, as it is not a demand order. There is no tax payable in those situations. Only in case of a demand order for which a tax payable has been demanded by the from the taxpayer, then only you need to have a pre-deposit under that thing. Subsequently, in cases of categories of cases that are under dispute, initially you need to select this in the first page of the appeal page itself. There are 15 different classifications that are provided covering each of the scenarios under GST law, and then there is a residuary selection, others, which once on clicking on it, you can type the issue that you need to appeal against. Ensure that you select the correct kind of appeal here, because it will determine how the appeal will be handled by the Commissioner Appeals. Further, as you all aware, an appeal has to be filed. There is a time limit for filing an appeal. An appeal has to be filed within the expiry of 3 months from the date of communication of the order. The order that is communicated through the GST portal, once the order is uploaded to the taxpayer, the date is uploaded itself is considered as the date of communication of the order, and subsequently with that, 3 months will begin from that date. If after 3 months a taxpayer still intends to file an appeal, then he can do so by obtaining a condonation of delay from the Commissioner Appeals for a period of 1 month. However, if even after 4 months, if after 4 months an appeal is being filed, then the taxpayer will end up with a warning pop-up that comes up here in GST in the appeal page, which states that the appeal form is time barred and even the condonation period is over. But if you still wish to continue, you may file the application for appeals. So you will get to file the appeal even if it is time barred. But however, it is very much liable to be rejected by the Commissioner Appeals due to the fact that it is time barred. Hence, the portal still allows the taxpayer to file the appeal regardless. So, guys, that was the entirety on how e-assessments happen in GST. The thing about GST is that it is not an assessment which is in the nature of faceless assessment. The jurisdictional officer as well as the assessing officer, whoever is carrying it out, will be known to the taxpayer, and the taxpayer will be known to the officer. They will get to interact face to face if required, through personal hearings or even department visit if required. But a majority of the functions for either intimation of notices or replying to show cause notices or appealing against any orders is provided on the GST portal itself. And going further, you will definitely see most of it being done through the GST portal, and the requirement for visiting departments to be very less. In customs, however, the entire thing changed in June 2020, a year ago, where faceless assessment in customs was introduced in wide notification number 50/2020 customs non-tariff dated 5th June 2020. Ever since then, every bill of entry that has been brought into by entered by importers in India has been carried out through a faceless assessment. The faceless assessment replaces the earlier risk management system for assessment of bill of entries, and it definitely replaces the face-to-face interaction with the customs officials and the importers. Let's take a short look at how faceless assessment works, the procedure for the faceless assessment in customs. So an importer will file the bill of entry in the IceGate portal that is provided to them, the importer or the customs broker. Once the bill of entry is filed through the IceGate portal, the bill of entry gets assigned to FAG, that is a faceless assessment group actually created by the CBIC, the central board, and it will be done so by the customs automated system based on the specialization of the FAG. Now, an FAG or a faceless assessment group, each of them have a specialization with regard to the type of goods that are being imported, such as, for example, one particular FAG will specialize in an area called as chemicals. So any goods that which are chemical in nature and are imported into India will be assigned, and all those bill of entries will be assigned only to that specializing FAG for carrying out the assessment. Once the FAG, the faceless assessment groups, once they receive the bill of entry, they will carry out an assessment for determining the customs and customs duty and its import restrictions. They do so by assessing the bill of entry that has been made available to them, or they may also call for additional information from the importers as they need. They may also order the examination or testing of the goods that have been imported by the examination testing will be, of course, be conducted by the port officials. By after carrying out all these functions, the FAG will carry out an assessment of the bill of entry and determine how much of customs duty has to be paid. If any communication is required between the FAG and the importer, then this also will be carried out electronically in the IceGates portal itself. There will not be any physical or email communications made by them. The IceGate portal has the entire capacity to take in queries from the FAG for the importer. Once all the queries and communications has been provided, the FAG will then carry out such evaluation, will provide all the clarifications. The FAG may either accept the bill of entry as it is, that is, they may assess the bill of entry based on the declaration made by the importer for the customs duty purpose, or they may reassess the bill of entry and levy a higher customs duty if required by them, if they feel that it is required to be reassessed. Once they do the reassessment, if they do a reassessment, then they will issue a speaking order as per section 17(5) of the Customs Act. The speaking order will be then sent to the importer for his convenience, and so he can clear the goods after payment of tax. If the importer, after receiving the order, does not find it satisfactory, then he has the option of appealing against the reassessment made by the FAG with the Commissioner of Appeals within 60 days from the date of communication. The appeal will be made in form CA1, that is a format for appeal made available in Customs Act. And the appeal in this case will not be a faceless appeal. This is the first level of appeal that is made in customs, but this will not be a faceless appeal, but it will be a physical appeal, and it will lie with the jurisdictional Commissioner of Appeals of the Port of Import. That means if an importer is in Bangalore and he imports any goods into Bangalore, then the Commissioner of Appeals having jurisdiction over Bangalore will be the one against with whom an appeal can be made against the FAG order. So the first level of appeal that is available to importers is not faceless. Only the bill of entry that has been imported into India has been made faceless since a year. Finally, this is a small brief about the faceless assessment that is carried out in customs. Of course, with already being a year into the faceless assessment, there have been a lot of clarifications and circulars and instructions that have been provided by the customs authorities for their field officers as well as FAG group in order to smoothen and provide a faster clearance to all the goods that have been imported. Currently, the customs authorities claim that over 90% of the goods imported have been cleared through the faceless assessment group without any issues. In conclusion, all I can tell is that E-assessment in GST and customs has been picking up. There has been major improvements that have been made over the last 1 year. One of the reasons could be COVID. Another reason could be the government's determination to bring everything in the electronic, in the digital, make it digitized in every aspect, including assessments. Going into the future, there are a lot of opportunities for which the government may make use of the new electronic methods that are available to them. One of them would be integration of accounting data with tax portals. Accounting software that come in from the future may require specified formats of data to be available, for which once the data, once you download the particular data in the format, it'll be provided to the tax authorities. The format will be provided by the tax authorities themselves, for which the software will be configured. This is to some extent followed in the European Union and the United States. This becomes easier for taxpayers as well as tax department, as all the information that they require will be taken care of by the softwares themselves. Next would be the real-time data sharing and payments. In the future, we may see issues with where credit card or online payments may require to remit the tax portion after every transaction. This is not something that is quite new. This has been in the talks for quite some time, especially in the European Union. In India, with the advent of the unified payment interface, that is UPI, it won't be difficult for India to implement this as well, where any transaction or purchase that is made will directly, the tax amount part of it will be directly remitted to the government. Then, of course, we have the virtual hearings. Virtual hearings have already become a norm now, with almost all appeal cases coming under virtual hearing, and all so-called notices also, personal hearings also coming under virtual hearings. Departmental visits may also be a thing of the past, and as we go into the future, almost every aspect will come under virtual hearing if we need to meet the departmental officers, and all of these virtual hearings will be recorded. Finally, all I can say is that we can look forward to a bright future, a great future where all of the taxation will come under electronic assessments, and that's something that the department and the government is looking forward to make it happen. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Pratik. And as you said, here's to a bright future. So Pratik, let's move on to the next slide, please. All right. So this is the Q&A session right now, as I mentioned. So if any questions, please fill them and please share them on the chat group. We'll address them here. In case if we can't, we will be sharing an email with everyone who's registered. We'll share the recording of the webinar as well as the question and answers that were answered earlier. So Sonu has asked a question. Please tell that what happened if the department is sending the email directly. Is it required to reply?
That's an excellent question. Under Section 169 of the CGST Act, the various methods under which the department can send, that is, serve notices to the taxpayers are provided. One of them is, electronically sharing it or uploading it to the common portal. Electronically sending it would also include emails. So yes, under Section 169, it definitely would be a valid way of serving notice if the same has been sent by the email. However, there is one particular case that was heard in the past where a writ petition was filed stating that since some of the show cause notices had to be uploaded electronically, that is to the common portal of, that is the GST portal, the show cause notice was asked to be held as invalid. Surprisingly, the High Court accepted it and stated that if the show cause notice has not been uploaded to the GST portal, then it would be considered as invalid. But that particular judgment should not be taken in its entirety, because Section 169 clearly provides for electronic means of sending the notices. So if you have received anything in email, please do try and reply to it in the normal manner, or you can make a request to the officer asking them to upload the same in the GST portal.
Thank you, Pratik. Sonu, I hope you've answered your question. Feel free to ask a follow-up. All right, so Sonu says thank you. All right, if there are any more questions, please feel free to type them in. Right. So Ankit Surana has asked a question. What if the notices received through email doesn't contain DIN?
All notices that are required to be issued by the department required to have the document identification number. If the DIN has not been submitted, if has not been stated in the notice, then technically we can hold that the notice was never served on the taxpayer, because the DIN forms an important part of the part of identifying whether the notice is valid or not. So in case a DIN has not been received, we can hold the notice as invalid, but please note that the GST law does not have any such clause within them. DIN is something that the CBSE has brought in to curb illegal notices or notices sent that has been not with the CBSE. So in that such a situation, you can definitely reply to the notice, or however, you can also request the officer to issue the notice with a DIN. But please note that if you do choose to reply to a notice without a DIN, then your reply will be considered as a valid reply. And if the notice is sent by the CBSE, it will be considered as a valid notice. So if you have an issue with it, then request them to issue with the DIN or don't reply at all. However, it's always better to reply to the department in case of any notice that has been served to you through email at least.
Okay, so there's one more question from Sonu Kunar. Can the officer invoke Section 74 of the CGST Act merely on the grounds of rumors?
Merely on the grounds of?
Rumors.
Sorry, come again?
Rumors. Rumor.
Rumors, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Section 74 is a serious accusation if it is invoked against the taxpayer. A fraud or any misstatement has to be proven by the department before they can actually go ahead with accusing the taxpayer of fraud. When a notice under 74 is issued, the at least notice and even the order on 74 have to be speaking orders. That is, the order has to clearly state out the reasons why Section 74 has been invoked against the taxpayer. So based on mere rumors which cannot be proved, taxpayers cannot invoke 74. That is, of course, as per the law. But once again, practically the situation can be quite different. 74 is usually invoked by the tax authorities in order to gain the extended period that is available to them, that is 5 years, instead of the usual 3 years that is available under 73. So yeah, on rumors, they cannot invoke 74, but if they do, you can definitely question it and question the reason why 74 was invoked without any valid reason.
All right, Pratik, thank you. And thank you, Ankit, for that question. So that's all the time we have. Thank you everyone for joining in for this webinar and staying with us. Wish you all a pleasant day, pleasant evening ahead. Thank you, everyone. Bye.